Reddit, what is the most ducked up way you got back at someone that wronged you? Throwaways encouraged. From another post. When I was 7 or 8 I did a science project on the antibacterial efficacy of various soaps. Basically involved keeping hands dirty for a day, pressing grubby thumbs into petri dishes full of agar, then washing and doing the same again. I'd take tracings of the cultures. Bigger colonies were bad, smaller ones good. This ended up winning the county science fair for my grade in a large metropolitan area, so that was nice. But before that, after I'd finished the experiments but before I discarded the dishes, I got into a dispute with my parents. Don't remember what about. I thought, I'll show them. So I took the nastiest culture and swabbed it onto their bedroom doorknob. They both got sick as dogs and I had to take care of them for a couple of days. Served me right. TLDR. I waged bacteriological warfare against my parents using my science project. But I told them long ago and we laugh about it now. At an all-male military boarding school during high school, there was this huge douche on my hall. We took his Febreze bottle and filled it with piss. Then took said bottle and sprayed his pillow, wall locker and opposite corner. So he gets back, smells urine and immediately grabs his Febreze and douses everything. E to D. Donovan. Eat. Capital A. D. I have one I'm about to do in a couple days. See, my parents suck. I've been taking care of them for a while also going to school and whatnot, and still they are trying to cheat me, pawn my things, etc. But I've become fed up with them. I'm out of town at the moment, but when I get back, the next time they ask me to walk 2 miles to get them a pack of cigarettes, I will walk outside, around the house, have a friend with a van come, bring my pre-packed it out of the basement entrance, leave and stay at my friend's house for a few days until the day my train ticket is planned for, then move 2,000 miles across the country and live with another friend who just got me a job, rendering them worthless pillheads waiting for a pack of Pall Mall menthol 100s for the rest of their sad lives. My past girlfriend cheated on me, and her roommate at the time had gotten to that point in their lease where they weren't super fond of each other and kept some distance. Her roommate was smoking hot, kind of itchy sometimes, and wasn't fond of my ex, so I decided to make a move on her. Best move ever. The look on my ex's face when her roommate walked me to the door in her underwear after the first night was priceless. We proceeded to have hot, dirty, loud sex almost nightly for next 8 weeks until their lease was up, and for a while after that. My ex even walked in on us in the living room once. Kinda dish, but goddamn was it fun, and there's no way I felt bad about it. TLDR, my GF cheated on me. I have outdoor summer sex with her roommate until the lease is up. Edit. And so it came to pass that the highest voted thing I will ever post on Reddit was under a throwaway in a what's the most ducked up thing you've ever done thread. Lol. I used to live in a very small town, like 250-300 people. We had no stores, gas stations, etc. One day a local guy decided to open up a little store that sold the basics like groceries and rented movies. He hired a few of us high school kids to work the store, and promised $50 a week for the summer to be paid at the end of the summer. We agreed, and started working. We gave up a summer stocking shelves, cleaning the bathroom, lawn care and whatever else. Well, the end of the summer comes around. It's our last day of work, and he comes by with our paychecks. $50 for each of us, for the whole summer. Needless to say, we weren't too happy. But his words were, "What the duck are you gonna do about it? Drop the key off at my house since you won't need it anymore." We came up with a plan to pay this douchebag back before locking up the store for the last time. We left a window unlocked. We dropped the key off at the house. Around midnight, we were back at the store, grabbed as much as we could. Cigarettes, money from the register, candy, probably about $1,000 worth of it. Locked the window. Then left through the emergency exit that had no alarm. There were also no cameras of any kind. Next day there were cops there. He accused all of us of doing it, but had no proof. He ended up having to shut down the store a few months later because the town heard how he didn't pay us and stopped doing business there. I don't feel bad. Ducker deserved it. Edit. Thanks for tripling my comment karma. Figures it's about a crime I committed 15 years ago. Should have used a throwaway. I'm immune to poison ivy, so I was always uprooting it in our yard, about a full acre. I'd left it on this concrete area behind our garage, because that's where it was near when I pulled it out. Hey, I was lazy. Anyway, I frequently walked down to a fishing pond across this canal in my neighborhood. This is in South Louisiana. I didn't always have a functioning bike and the walk was only about a mile. A big kid, probably 2-3 years older than me, was a real jerkus. He'd do stuff like ride by me on his bike and act like he was gonna high five me, but then slap my face and ride off, laughing. Anyway, one day he did that, and I went back home, upset. I got my water gun and was gonna shoot him if he messed with me again. Then I saw the poison ivy and got an evil idea. In the bucket it went with some water, stirred it all up good, then dumped it in my water gun, went back to the pond. On the way back home he came around messing with me again. I hosed him down and he broke my gun, but man, it was worth it. From what I hear, he didn't go back to school for almost 2 weeks. I covered his ceiling fan with glitter. Fear me, Methodicas. I had a friend in high school who became an arsehole during our senior year. There were a bunch of little things that added up to our friendship falling apart. But at the worst of it, I pooped on his car one night. Real simple. I just crawled up on the hood of his car and took a writ on his windshield. I just knew that he'd walk outside the next day and think, what the duck is this? Fun fact, we're actually great friends again now. He still has no idea it was me. My friend hit me, jokingly, so I licked my hand and rubbed it all over his face. In hindsight, the fact that I kept doing it for weeks afterward was probably what made it weird. One time I pranked someone by going into their host files and blocking Reddit. They couldn't go on Reddit for weeks. That's pretty ducked up. Full stop. Nothing to do with me, but here's one of the most baddest stories I've seen on Reddit. My first high school BF was not very good with grades, so he asked me to make him a fake report so he could show his parents and not get into trouble. He also cheated on me with my best friend and dumped me. He then promised to get back with me if I forged the report for him. I agreed up until the day when we were meant to get our reports for school. I told him I didn't do it. He got bashed by his dad when he got home for the string of D's and F's. Friend and I were fishing at a local creek when my friend's brother pulled up. Being the D he normally was, he started throwing rocks in the creek to scare the fish, and then he threw my friend's bike in the creek. We were 13 at the time. My friend was crying and I felt so bad. I jumped into the creek and got his bike out. Told him we would get his brother back. About a month later we were fishing again and it was the dead of summer. I told my friend today is the day we get his brother back. Caught a 2-stroke 3-pound carp. Threw it up on the side of the bank and left it there until we were done fishing. At the end of the night went back to his place. His brother's car was sitting on the street. We took the carp, sliced it open and threw it under the driver's seat and rolled his windows 3-stroke 4 up. The next morning when we woke and left, I forgot about what we had done. Well, when I rode past JT's car I noticed the window was kind of black, and then I took a closer look. It was covered in flies. I actually got scared because I did not expect a window caked with flies. By the time I got home I was laughing in tears because his brother was always such a D to us. Fast forward to baseball practice about 3 days later. Friend had a black eye but smiled at me when we made eye contact. His brother flipped out and ran into his house and punched him in the face. His mom flipped out on his brother. Brother was grounded for the rest of summer. His mom said that my friend would never do such a thing and he played along and acted as if he had no idea. Apparently the smell never really left the car. We nicknamed his brother Lord of the Flies. My so-called best friend in primary school stole my shiny Pokemon cards. I was only 6 or so at the time, but that didn't stop me from being a sadistic little first grader and having older brothers. Well, let's just say I knew how things worked. Guess who found out the truth about Santa, the Tooth Fairy and the Power Rangers all at once? Don't duck with 6-year-old me. I can't decide whether OP is creepily brilliant or brilliantly creepy. Duck throwaways because I'm proud of this. It. My best friend since I was 3 years old. Started texting and flirting. Then eventually sleeping with my boyfriend of 7 years. He was apologetic, regretful, and begging for me back. As was she. It was a mistake, they said. Never happen again, they said, until it happened again. Well, my best friend had this obsessive relationship with this guy Billy, who was so heartbroken by her infidelity. He came to me. He felt like a loser having just lost both his girl and his job. So I hired him at my job where I was a manager. We became good friends. And my now ex-best friend was going nuts. I then started a rumor that Billy and I were dating and serious about it. She saw us in a car together while I was bringing him home and went ducking nuts. She started driving like a psycho and texting me saying, "How could you do this to me? Why would you do this to me?" I ignored them. I dipped off the road and dropped him off at home, and unfortunately had to fire him for stealing money from work. All in all, I got my revenge. I ducked with her head. I ducked with my ex's head. Got them all upset, but never actually did the horrible act of cheating that they did, but they all think I did, and I'm okay with that. My girlfriend of 3 years that I dated through high school broke up with me my first semester of college. We went to different schools and I later learned she was hooking up with one of her guy friends there. Anyways, when we both were on break, she asked me to bring back all the stuff she had given me. Presents, sweatshirts, cards, etc. So I drive to her house with all the things we've exchanged in the past 3 years. Once I got to her house, I saw that she had invited all her friends over and they were sitting with her along with her parents in the garage. Anyways, I walk up with her and exchange. Everyone there had that smirk on their face like they were laughing at me. Anyways, as I give her back her things, I say, "If only I could give back your virginity." The look on her parents' faces was absolutely priceless. And I walked out of that lion's den with the biggest smile on my face. My neighbor knocked my dad's motorcycle and simply left it on the floor. It smashed a mirror and they didn't even leave their insurance details. My dad refused to call the police, saying they probably didn't notice. Yet I saw them look at it and proceed to carry on with their usual lives. This annoyed me so much, I decided to call 20 taxis, 5 Chinese takeaways, and a stripper dressed as a policeman to their house, all for 1 AM in the morning. It was a really dish thing to do, but we all do stupid things, right? Not me, my brother. When my younger brother was about 3, my father had to look after him for the day. The plan was that he, after asking his boss, would take him into work for the day. It was office work, and he was friendly with his boss, so my mum assumed it was no big deal. My father, however, didn't want a toddler distracting him all day, so he left him in the car with the radio on and a carton of apple juice. This is Britain, so it wouldn't overheat. But either way, he was being an ass. At the end of the day, he returned back to his car to drive home, expecting a sleeping toddler who wouldn't tell his mother a thing. Instead, upon his return, he found his son jumping up and down on the front seats to the radio on full blast, naked and laughing, slipping around and covered in it. He had soiled himself, removed his nappy, his fecal matter everywhere. It was smeared all over the driver's seat, the windscreen, the steering wheel, the sat-nav, the driver's window, even hand printed on the ceiling. Our dad didn't even know that toddlers could even produce this vast amount of turd. The only car seat that was completely untouched was his own. TLDR. My 3-year-old brother was abandoned in a car for 8 hours. Later found smearing his own brand revenge paint all over my father's beloved BMW. My sister used to beat me up, steal my birthday money, call me a fag in front of friends and girls I liked. When mom went shopping for Christmas, my sister would tell her to buy me these horrible clothes to make me look the part. Pretty much was just a total itch to me. So every time I had to pee in the shower, I'd pee in her shampoo and body wash all over her razor, body sponge thing, everything. Duck you, Vanessa. After reading through these comments, it's obvious to me that most of you need better friends. This thread equals Count of Monte Cristo. I'm Canadian C. I wrote a polite letter subtly insulting a friend of mine. I didn't even say sorry. Edit. Grammar. My then high school girlfriend was a total itch and wanted me to abandon all of my friends. Would always try to bring me down. Etc. When I got fed up, I broke up with her on picture day. She took them, but her mascara was everywhere. 2 days later, I told her that I was sorry, blah blah, and I wanted to get back together. She liked having someone to walk on, so of course she said yes. I then broke up with her again on retake day. Ducking nailed it. I worked as a server in a fine dining restaurant in a touristy town in Florida. The owners, a husband and wife team, were notorious for being cruel and petty bastards. But it was 2008 and I had just been laid off, so I had to take anything. On top of that, I was engaged to be married, paying for the wedding ourselves, and planning a move to Nick as well. This could be an incredibly long story, so I will just give a few examples of their batted cruelty. 1. Dyslexic server who trained me. Fired a week after I started because he took too long to write the specials on the chalkboard. They knew he was dyslexic. 2. His replacement. Deck. 23rd. She was fired for selling the wrong bottle of wine. While this was definitely her mistake, their handling of it was despicable. She sold a $125 bottle of wine for $35. Restaurant prices, not the restaurant's actual cost. Those were $56 and $10. The owner let the table know of the server's mistake, saying, "I hope you are enjoying that bottle of wine. It's actually a $125 bottle. But don't worry, you don't have to pay for it. Your server will have to." Needless to say, the table was furious for being put in that awkward position, and were gracious enough to give an awesome secret tip to cover the cost. Here is the nasty part. She finished out her shift and paid the total $125 thinking she still had a job. She was fired on Christmas Eve by text message. 3. Me. I kept quiet as much as I could. I saw that whenever you shared any bit of your personal life with these ducks, they used it to torment. The wife owner followed me around the fall and berate me in increasingly weird ways with the intent to emasculate. Once they met my fiance registered sign-in, from that moment on, the wife owner would make jabs saying she doesn't seem like she is too thrilled to get married, or she probably expects better, and then laugh it off like she was just joking. It was my strategy to just eat it and save money, and not let it bother me. She figured this out right away and got downright sadistic, trying to see how far they could push me and see what I would do without complaint. I managed to suck it up for 2 years thanks to alcohol, no backbone, and financial need. My breaking point was when she told me to take away the chair our hostess was sitting in when no customers were around. Granted, sitting on the job is supposedly unprofessional, but she was an elderly woman, sick, working outside. The hostess wouldn't dare call in sick as she was working here illegally from Hungary, and similarly had to eat as much as was thrown at her. So rather than talk to the hostess and possibly take over for her sick employee, she asked me to snag the chair from her without explanation. Here is the ducked up part. I did it. I ducking did it. The hostess understood. Really? What could she say? She knew what was happening and gave me this look of understanding that I'll never forget. I got a few feet away and put the chair back, looking straight back at the violet stin that asked me to be cruel to another person for her amusement. The owner didn't say a word to me about my subordination and gave me the cold shoulder for the rest of the evening. 2 weeks later, I was closing out my tips and receipts with the husband owner. I had counted my bank prior to cashing out with him as I always did. Everything added up just fine. Turns out he had secretly added in a cash ticket to my till for $150. It showed on the report he printed at 1 minute before running the cash out report. I had only 4 tables, all cash tips and all credit card tickets that night, so it was not hard to keep track of. Lucky me, I thought. I questioned this and said I had double checked my math and he must have made some mistake. His response was, "If you don't like it, there is the door." That pretty much sealed it. I knew what was happening and luckily my brain initiated the "you is about to be forced to quit so you gets the unemployment money's disaster recovery response. I refused to pay him and said I will be returning to work tomorrow for my next scheduled shift, and we can work this out then. He said, "Duck you. Get out." I was fired. This was very important. I was fired. I didn't quit. I was a month away from moving to Nick with my wife to try to start a career in my field. I just needed 1 more month of saving every last penny I made and I was out. This pretty much ducked me, so I filed for unemployment stating the reasons I was fired on my last night, which met the eligibility requirements. The unemployment office contacted my former employer for verification and he said I was fired for stealing wine and there were witnesses. My claim was denied. The next step was to dispute the claim. I disputed and it went to the adjudication process. Basically what amounted to a phone hearing between my former employer, an unemployment caseworker, me, and any witnesses. This is where I got revenge. I knew of the upcoming hearing, and my employer was notified by mail of the date. The letter explained the process and instructed to line up any witnesses and materials needed for the case. It also stated that you have a period of time to reschedule the hearing if needed. An unemployment worker explained the process to me over the phone before the letters were mailed. I then paid an anarchist punk guy with beer to steal any of their mail from the unemployment office and bring it to me. Leading up to the hearing, I also reported them to a SCAP for playing copyrighted music in their establishment without paying dues, a fairly hefty fine, and reported some of their more crooked dealings to the IRS. Namely how the wife owner would use her name as an employee for several of the illegal workers, underreporting earnings, etc. I also dropped a dead fish into their gutters above their patio, waited a week for the rats to appear and called the Heath department. At the time of the hearing, the owner was caught off guard and tried to reschedule. He was not allowed to reschedule because the letter, which he never received, stated that failure to attend the hearing automatically results in a ruling for the other party. He complied and we went along with the hearing without his fake witness. During the hearing I kept calm but he lost his temper. I answered my questions in a way to really get his anger going. And it worked. The key question posed to my former employer was, had he not stolen any property, would you still have fired him? He slipped and said yes, sending the ruling in my favor. A few weeks later I received my check for all the past months of unemployment. It was enough to get me to New York City. 2.5 years later, I am still married, and found an excellent job in my field with great pay, benefits, an awesome boss, and union representation. They are struggling to keep the doors open and have both had a host of financial problems. TLDR. I went Monte Cristo on the asshole sling in Crisco. Or got treated subhuman by a sadistic employer for 2 years. Had enough. Fought back and won. When I was around 13-14 I used to hang out with my 21-year-old neighbors. I didn't realize at the time that all these guys would do is convince me to do stupid and then run away when I got in trouble. This continued until I was about 17 when I finally realized what was going on. I was furious and wanted revenge, but by the time I thought up a plan these guys had moved. I decided I would make my move anyways. These guys were serious stoners and always had parties. I went to a party once and chilled in the back. In my car I had 5 cartons of heavy whipping cream that I had purchased 6 months prior. I left them in the fridge until that day. I took each carton and poured one in each of the air vents. I had 1 carton left over, so I poured it into the AC unit, not sure if it did anything. The smell coming from the cartons was so rancid and disgusting I had to stop myself from barfing a few times. A few weeks later the house was up for sale. No one would buy it because of the smell though, or so I heard. They gave up on selling it and tried burning it down. After an investigation the oldest brother was arrested for fraud and served 1 year in prison. I haven't heard anything about them since. This only works if they have more than 1 kid, but this is what you do. 1. Kidnap their kids. 2. Send ransom letter saying the parents have to choose one or you will choose for them. 3. Wait for reply. 4. If they choose, tell the kids which one the parents chose to live. 5. Send both the kids back unharmed. Didn't do this, but I witnessed it. I was at camp and there was this one really obnoxious kid who kept getting on everyone's nerves. He was a know-it-all and a tattletale. So one night we're in the bunk area and it's just me and this other guy that had the bunk across from me. The little doucher had left a giant bag of Twizzlers open on his bed that was still about 3/4 full. The guy across from me noticed the Twizzlers, hopped down off his bunk and said, "Watch this." He then proceeds to take every Twizzler and rub his balls with them. An hour later when the kid came back I had to leave because I couldn't hold in my laughter at the sight of that little bastard eating his Twizzlers. Dating a girl. Hot, beautiful C-cup titties. I get monosyllabic just thinking about them now. My brother clued me into how she was cheating on me. I didn't believe it. My brother forced me to get into his car and follow her from work, where she went right to her ex-boyfriend's house. She was also ducking my, at the time, best friend. I had left for a few months to Europe where I turned down a stunning and smart girl who ended up going to college within my field of study for this tramp. I got tested and was clean. That was a stressful wait to find that out. While I was plotting something else, a revenge plan of opportunity popped up in the form of a P-boner. She was frustrated that I didn't want to have a 6 because of the STD fears when I found out about cheating. So she wanted to give me one of her excellent blowjobs. I really needed to pee. Hate can motivate a person to do some unnatural things. Normally, it's impossible or quite difficult to pee when sexually aroused. I on the other hand was fueled by the glorious unzipping of a plan that was starting to enter her mouth. She sucked. It got hard. It felt good. After a few moments, I mimicked the convulsions related to just before ejaculation. She started to apply a strong suction for the finish, and I let the dam burst open. It's almost comical how her cheeks ballooned out as urine flooded her mouth. As she was attempting to swallow only a few teaspoons of semen, she choked on the fire hose going off in her mouth. But to my surprise, instinctively stayed on to take nearly the full contents of my bladder. Cheeks ballooned out, face stretched out trying to contain all my urine. She went to the sink to spit out the contents. As she was figuring out what happened, I thought to myself, sometimes the best plans aren't planned at all. I refused the kiss. Her breath smelled like pee. In 2009 I deployed for a 6-month tour to the Helmand province in Afghanistan, running at least weekly missions from Leatherneck to Nowzad. We were the only unit that would run that route in the entire AO. It was that bad. A month into the deployment, I was just getting 6 months into my first real relationship. It was long distance, as I was stationed in NC and she lived back home in NY. We were planning on getting married, but my staff sergeant gave me a little speech and I decided that it was best to wait until after the deployment. She was already cheating on me 4 months into the relationship. I took it hard, and that's all I thought about for 6 months while I waited to get back home. I had a bunch of her stuff, and she had some of mine. Never got any of my stuff back, but she had given me this tiny little dancer trinket to wear on my dog tags. Her mother had given it to her before she ran off, so it had some sentimental value to her. Oh, and 5 months into my deployment, her new level 3-6 offender boyfriend who she left me for goes back to prison for probation violation. I get a message over Facebook that she just found out she's 6 months pregnant, and it's mine. There's no way you just find out you're 6 months pregnant when you weigh 110 pounds soaking wet. It was a sham to get me back. There was no pregnancy. 6 months later, I arrive back home. I go into the subway where she works, and lo and behold she's working. I walk in, and she goes "Welcome to Sue," and cuts off mid-sentence as she sees me, with a look of absolute horror on her face. I walk in, walk up to the counter, look her dead in the eyes, set the dancer trinket on the counter, shake my head, and turn around and walk out. I could hear her start crying before I got to the door. I'm much more successful out of the military. I have a great job, an amazing girlfriend, and a sweet town home. I'm about to get a dog here soon. I've never blocked her on Facebook. I just don't see her updates in my news feed. She'll poke me every once in a while, but I never poke back. It's nice to know that she can watch me be successful without her, and I know her life is in shambles. About once a year she tries to message me and ask me how I'm doing, but it usually ends with her going on some depressing rant about how she ducked up and wishes she never cheated on me and left me. TLDR, Itch cheated on me while I was in Afghanistan. Gave her back sentimental item without saying a word. She's still allowed to see Facebook to see how successful I've become. Edit, there was no child. Duck throwaways. Dated a girl who I really liked, but she was always hot and cold to me, and when she was cold, she could really treat me like a bucket of liquid. It took me way longer than it should have, but I finally manned up and dumped her. She proceeded to alternately try to win me back and seduce my friends. Basically, an immature reaction from an immature person. So, couple of weeks later, I meet an amazing girl at a concert, and we start dating. This new girl is awesome, cool, fun and sexy, but within a week of dating her, I realized something else about her. My itchy ex had had a job the summer before, which had her basically spending the whole summer with a girl that she had developed a major complex about. Wherever the two went anywhere together, Guys would always hit on this other girl and never hit on my itchy ex. It got to the point that my ex had developed this major anxiety complex regarding this girl she worked with. By pure random chance, I had gone out and met that girl and was now dating her. The satisfaction I felt when I showed up at a party around a month after the breakup and letting itchy ex see who I was with was immense. She had a total meltdown that included crying, screaming and ranting before screaming at the guy she came with, "Take me home right now. We're leaving." To which he replied, "Call a cab, psycho. I'm not taking you anywhere." It's the little moments in life that you have to cherish. Reddit tried to make the second paragraph a little less confusing. May or may not have succeeded.